Good afternoon, Your Honors. Our next witness, and probably our last witness for today, is Jenny Rose Hayahay, who is a spokesperson of the Save Our Schools Network. She will testify on the massacre of volunteer teachers and medical staff of the Luman schools, its arbitrary closure, and on other attacks. The witness will testify in person. May I proceed with the questions? Thank you. Ms. Witness, how are you related to Chad Booc, Gelejurain Ngujo II, and Elegyn Balonga?
Good afternoon, Your Honor. Chad Booc, Gelejurain Ngujo II, and Elegyn Balonga or Ati Daday are my colleagues. Chad, Jurain, and I are Lumad volunteer teachers of Lumad schools, indigenous schools in Mindanao, and in backward schools, evacuation centers in Luzon and in Visayas. While Ati Daday is our community health workers. So she used to do medical mission in Lumad communities and in evacuation center areas in Mindanao since 2013. We are all active members of the Save Our Schools Network.
Ms. Witness, what is this Save Our Schools Network?
The Save Our Schools Network, it is a network of child-focused, non-government organization, church-based groups, academic, and other stakeholders advocating for indigenous peoples or children's right to education and right to self-determination.
Thank you, Ms. Witness. Now, what happened to your fellow volunteer teachers, Chad, Gelejurain, and to Ate Daday, to Elegyn?
They were massacred in New Bataan, Davao de Oro, Mindanao, Philippines on February 24, 2022 by the Armed Forces of the Philippines. According to the autopsy of Chad Booc, preliminary those findings are multiple gunshot wounds on his trunk, causing his death, and multiple internal damages of his internal organs, in stomach, in ribs, and in other parts. But prior to the murder of Chad, Jurain, and Elegyn, they were assigned to conduct an initial assessment, research, data gathering, and environmental scanning of areas where Lumad schools used to operate in New Bataan. Why? Because we are preparing for a possible reopening of Lumad schools in these areas because we have seen the importance of Lumad communities, of the education of these Lumad communities. So, Lumad communities located far flung from the cities. As you could see, we are in southern part of Philippines and Mindanao. And these communities is abundant of mineral resources such as gold, copper, nickel, and etc. And these communities have been deprived of basic social services such as education and health. So they don't have the access to read, to write. And because of that, there are foreign or national mining companies go inside this community presenting documents written in a language that they don't understand. And these documents make them sign away their land rights under the guise of receiving tobacco, sardines, and other goods. So the tribal chieftain, the datus, the leader, the whole community asked help to the non-government organization, especially the church-based group. And because of this effort, we were able to build 100 of Lumad schools across Mindanao, catering not less than 10,000 indigenous children. And these schools, teaching the students how to read, to write, introduce their rights as indigenous people. We are unarmed. Chad, Jurain, Ate Daday, and my students and my colleagues are unarmed. yet we experience the state-sponsored attacks on schools under the guise of counterinsurgency during Duterte administration. These are my students. These are my colleagues who were victims of massacre and extrajudicial killings. My students are Abelio Bayao, 19 years old, John Mark Acto, 15 years old, Jerome Pangadas, 15 years old, and Angel Rivas, 12 years old. So after they killed, the armed forces of the Philippines narrate or said that these children, my students, is a combatant, a child warrior combatant of the new People's Army of the Philippines. Yeah. Also, we are victims of red tagging. Chad is a constant victim of red tagging, threat, harassment, vilification. Look at our school. So beautiful. This one. But look what the armed forces of the Philippines did to our schools. Military encampment. This is now our schools. Our schools are also experiencing this distraction. So because of those attacks, because of those extrajudicial killings, frustrated killings, enforced disappearance, threat, harassment, intimidation, red tagging, and the forcible closure of hundreds of LUMAD schools across Mindanao, we established the LUMAD Backward School. It's an evacuation schools in Luzon and Visayas. So we established that from 2017 to 2021. These schools serve as our expression, highest expression of resistance against those mining companies, against those militarization. However, in 2021, the Lumad Backward School in Cebu violently raided by the joint forces of Police Regional Office 7, Department of Social Welfare and Development, the National Task Force to End Local Communist Armed Conflict, and uniformed military. This led to the detention of Chad Booc, and some are my students and our datus. Then later, 3 months after, it was dismissed.
Ms. Witness, you mentioned about the threats, harassment, intimidation, and even the red tagging of your fellow volunteer teachers and staff and your LUMAD students. As a volunteer teacher yourself, were you also harassed, threatened, or intimidated by the military?
Your Honor, my mother is a victim of enforced disappearance on 2018. I was a fresh LUMAD volunteer teacher at that time. After a month, my mother was sore-faced, and the armed forces of the Philippines forced my mother to sign a waiver and affidavit stating that the armed forces of the Philippines did not abduct my mother. I am also a victim of red tagging. This is Lorraine Mariti Baduy, the former spokesperson of the National Task Force to End Local Communist Armed Conflict, saying that Rose Hayahay is a member of the New People's Army. Wanted poster bearing my face along with other human rights defenders, indigenous people's rights defenders posted in public areas such as in public market and bus terminal, and saying and linking us to the New People's Army.
Ms. Witness, how did these incidents affect you?
Yeah, so, Your Honor, there is no exact word to describe how these things affected to me. For 6 years of Duterte's administration, up until this moment, I am living in constant fear for my life, for my safety. We don't have the assurance that we can still do this, talk to you the next day or the other day. We don't have the assurance that I might not get killed, abducted, or worse, put into jail. Because we experience a lot. Lumad schools experience a lot. We experience fabricated criminal charges against Lumad teachers. And frustration is just an understatement. We are, it's too hard to us, like me, Lumad volunteer teacher, to understand why the government, the Duterte regime, announced in public and said, Lumad, get out there, I will bomb you, including your infrastructure. We are living in this fear for almost 6 years up until today. They don't recognize the Lumad schools. They don't want to listen to us. We are asking them to listen, yet this is what happened. For 6 years, until this moment, we are in fear, frustration, continuously experience a traumatic event in our life.
Ms. Witness, again for the record, have you filed a case in relation to any of these incidents?
Your Honor, we don't have any opportunity to do so. After the massacre and killing of Chad Booc, a lot of my colleagues, Lumad volunteer teacher, faced fabricated ramp-up charges, including me. And we do have reluctant or the ideas of how can we file a complaint to this administration when he even say in public that he will going to bomb our schools? How can we trust this system when the president said on public, I will going to bomb your Lumad communities? But, of course, we put some efforts. So we connected the Commission on Human Rights, and they conducted an impartial investigation on New Bataan 5 massacre, and up until today, they're still on process of their investigation.
Thank you, Ms. Witness. Now, aside from sharing what your fellow volunteer teachers and staff of the Lumad schools and the Lumad students have experienced, why are you here before this tribunal?
Your Honor, the impunity is being normalized among Lumad schools, indigenous schools. This is the doing of President Rodrigo Roa Duterte when he implemented martial law in Mindanao. We are under martial law. So during of those days, a lot of attacks on schools, national, international rights violations happened to us. And I am here today speaking in behalf of my colleagues, my students, of all Lumad schools who forcibly closed, asking and seeking justice and accountability, and asking the international community, this tribunal, to help us hold Duterte administration and the armed forces of the Philippines accountable against their crimes against the indigenous people in Mindanao and Lumad.
Thank you, Ms. Witness. We have no further questions for the witness, Your Honors.
What's, in your opinion, what's the reason why the Duterte regime was so hostile towards the Lumad and to the indigenous issue? What's his motivation? What's behind it?
Thank you for your question, Your Honor. So, way back 2019, President Rodrigo Roa Duterte said, I will choose your investors. And Lumad communities located in our areas were there is a lot of mineral deposits. And yeah, mineral deposits and the logging concession and mining companies are there. And when we introduce this right to these children, like, guys or students, you have the right to say no, you have the rights on your lands. And when they ask why militarization has happened, that's the triggering point where Duterte said that I will bomb your Lumad schools because of the resources, because how beautiful Lumad communities are.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So actually, I had a question that was very similar to his, and specifically, like, why are the schools being targeted? Like in your words, the Lumad schools themselves, and then also just want to thank you and all the witnesses for their testimonies. And I think it'd also be interesting to see some resources about the companies that are functioning in these areas, and what investors are part of these industries, and what relationships they have to Duterte, Marcos, and Biden.
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. I will going to submit my documents to our prosecutors, and just to give so there's an Australian mining companies in South Cotabato, the Sagittarius Mining Incorporated. That's one of the mining companies who were operated in Lumad community in north and south part of the Mindanao.
I have a question about the martial law. You mentioned you are under martial law. I would like to know which are the conditions, if it is for whom territory, or which is the situation.
Yeah, so thank you, Your Honor. So we are under martial law for 6 months in 2017. Then it was extended again. So if you're going to ask about what is the situation, it was so devastated situation because there is a lot of checkpoints. So our mobility and Lumad volunteer teacher, Lumad volunteer teacher can't go easily inside to the Lumad communities. So just like me, I can't go easily to Lumad communities where I used to teach. There's a wanted poster, checking of our bags, getting our names, and profiling.
Thank you very much. Prosecution team, are you?
Your Honors, if I may. The PowerPoint presentation of the witness, there is a video embedded to it. The video is a snippet, shows a snippet, a clip of the speech of President Duterte, explaining one of his reasons why he chose or he made that statement to bomb Lumad schools. And with that, specifically, he said that the Lumad schools are becoming like a recruitment haven for the New People's Army. That was one of his accusations against the Lumad schools. So we will submit the said video for the guidance of the jurors. Oh, here.
They are teaching subversion, communism, lahat na. So, umalis kayo dyan. Sabihin ko dyan sa mga Lumad ngayon, umalis kayo dyan. Bubombahan ko yan.
They are teaching subversion, communism, all of it. That was one of the
accusations. Schools are being accused
yes.
of subversion
yes,
and being a haven
for communists. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honors. That was one of the accusations of the past administration against the Lumad schools.
Okay, the tribunal will take note of that.
And
Thank you, Your Honors.
when the president is saying get out of it, is that get out of your land or get out of your schools? Or what does he mean?
Both, Your Honors. Because the Lumad schools are in their communities as well, in their ancestral lands.
If you don't leave your land, so I will bomb you.
Yes, Your Honor.
That's the meaning. Thank you.